Yeah, go on.
Hey, welcome everybody. This is our first episode of 2023 to Securing Abundance with I've got my guest Amber Bennett and my she-fool of over 40 years, Tom Updegrove here. And we're going to talk about education today. So this is also the
We're
first
going to talk about
Amber
munchkins.
and Tom worked in. Yeah, Tom and I educate, but Amber's particularly concerned with munchkins, the younger one. So Tom, meet Amber.
Hey, Tom.
Hello, Amber.
How are
We've
you?
kind of chatted at least via email anyway.
Yeah, a little
And
bit.
both Abundance Digital members, we should point out when that's for Peter in this group there.
Yeah, I kind of like tune in and out, but I did catch Peter's New Year's email on the massively important
Transformative purpose, MTP.
transformative concept. But I know what my massively transformative purpose is.
Yeah, you've been doing it for a long time, Tom. I don't know, Tom's clicking around there, but
Help people
oh, there you
through the technical morass that we've created. Because I just come across people that are just dumbfounded. They're just overwhelmed, full of anxiety, and don't know if they can really cope with it completely. So I don't know. I've always had the ability to translate to help people through and understand this fourth wave of technology that we're dealing with. So
When you say morass, what do you mean? You
morass.
said you said this technical morass
So
we've created.
is a complexity, a
Ah,
complex maze-like experience that most
yeah.
people can't make sense of it. They make heads or tails. I mean, so I dealt with a customer. I've been a long time customer of mine for maybe 20 years, and but he's getting he never really that technically savvy to begin with, and now I think he's he's getting senile at the same time. But
aren't we all?
I was just trying to help him set up his email on his phone, and it was just like, oh God. It was very complex, very frustrating for him. It was semi-frustrating for me. And I kind of felt like the guy going, look, what I want you to do, I won't mention his name, okay, but what I want you to do is take that phone. You have the box it came with? Okay, take it back to the store and tell them you're not smart enough to have a smartphone.
It's the old computer thing. Well, it's hard. It's hard for people. And Tom and I are working on a project, by the way, that might even be useful to munchkins. Though they're usually better at it than we are. We're working on a project for somebody.
But you know something? What's weird is that even kids today, if I could chill some of the brightness on here, even kids today, just for low light, that's too high. I'm seeing that although they're born and bred on smartphone and technology, they're not as savvy as we think they are.
No. There's a difference. There's a difference. What I wanted to say is, like, on the one hand, it's hard for adults to figure out how to use something. So for that project we're working on, it's like, how long does it take you to just sign up your name and so I can get the Groupon offer? Why was my grandfather had to put in all that stuff? He just wants to get the coupon. But on the other thing, the kids go, I know how to sign up. And you're like, yeah, but you just gave your social security number. Who cares? It works. That's how you get it to work, So yeah, the worst savvy problems I think about right now with kids is the virtual reality. These Oculus Quests are got cameras and microphones recording the entire house that's going on, and the kid doesn't want to turn it off because then it takes a while to update, when they want to use it. So they want the auto updates to happen, And
What's the reality of so what's the reality of what Oculus would do with that data. So all that recording's going on. Like,
Mhm.
what does it actually mean? Because like, how many Oculuses are sold globally? How many people are they recording their data of? Like, what are they going to do with it? I know we've touched on this before, but
Yeah,
from a kid perspective,
a lot of times people don't even know why they're saving something. It's like a pack rat in anything. I'll throw that. I might
mm,
be able to use that later. So people sometimes, organizations might save data because they think down the road later they might need it. And this gets them in
mm,
trouble in a couple of ways. Sometimes it's like, did you store that type of information? Well, it looks like it got out and you get subpoenaed. Can you produce? You said you've been saving it for 10 years. We want to see you produce 10 years of records of that. So that gets one
mm,
bit of trouble. But the other part that could affect the kids is, suppose a hack goes and somebody is able to exfiltrate that data and
mm,
find whatever compromising videos or something. So any loss of personal data could be very damaging for people.
mm.
You see the latest? There's a hack on there's a couple car hacks that are floating around on TikTok, and kids are stealing cars. And it's some simple kind of way to start the car.
What's the
Probably,
article?
It's only on Elantras.
Honda or no, let's see. But they're able to turn on the car remotely with like a phone app, probably, or something.
Um, yeah, I didn't get a chance to actually look at the hack, but the claim was TikTok is teaching kids how to steal cars.
Well,
It's
what we're supposed to be talking about today is like about that self-taught TikTok teaching people. So, Tom, Amber presented the 4-slide thing, 5-slide.
I took a look at it.
Yeah, so talking about how young kids are learning today, and she had focused on an article that came out on she got from Mara, my thing, the Securing Abundance newsletter, driven by and we called it Einstein's Galileo. Mike wrote in and said that. So anyway, so it's about the U.S. Department of Education getting $128 billion. And what are they going to be doing with that, with all that money? So this is what led Amber to create these slides. So let's walk through this. So you started with theme before Tom got here.
Yeah, so just to jump back to the article, it was about the STEM program for the school
Science,
education.
technology, mathematics.
Yeah, so you belong in STEM and wanting to cultivate education on that front. Particularly, there was a heavy lean on getting girls more engaged in maths and engineering. So I did some digging on the partners and the sort of guidance that was given. There was quite a bit of education, which I found quite interesting, steering teachers how to psychologically engage with the kids, which, and this is in the previous podcast we did, which was somewhat contradictory with how the system actually works. So it was more recognizing kids' effort and their strategy versus being right or wrong, which then encourages ongoing, consistent effort versus, oh, well, I'm smart or I'm done. That sort of binary reward system or measuring system, metric system. So yeah, I did a lot of digging, and really where it got me to was, so there's the government system, and then they were talking about parents and teaching from home, and then there were all these different partners, which is some of the links I sent to you, like the million moonshots for girls, and I started to think, okay, well, what's actually the framework of the whole education system? And how would you build a strategy for it, or evolve it for the future? And I was saying to Larry, you could step back and go, okay, I'm going to create this one product that's going to change everything. Well, that's not actually the case, because like there's all these layers there already existing. There's this whole ecosystem that's already existing, that can be leveraged and utilized for an overarching strategy. But where I couldn't really get to was, or what I was interested to have a conversation about is what are the actual buckets of the touch points of education, and then who teaches the kids. Because if you were to build a strategy, it's like, okay, here's the touch points, who teaches the kids, and then I guess there's the other demographics, like the core one being age evolution, and then there's all the layers behind that, like socioeconomic demographics, etc. But if you just looked at the top line, they were sort of the big things. So I'm like, they can self-teach, which you guys just mentioned. They've got their mobiles, they've got their laptops, their iPads. They can be homeschooled. We know they learn from friends and classmates. And I do like the concept of like clubs, you know, like YMCA and that kind of thing. And then there's sports as well. So I didn't want to overcomplicate it, but this is my thought process. And then you've got the school, which is a touch point. That's bricks and mortar, but we know that's skewed to virtual. And then within that, there's the who. So there's the teachers, the counselors, the coaches. And Larry was saying, you know, kids learn from the janitor. They learn from the cleaner that picks up the rubbish in the school, and they should be too, obviously. And then you've got the organizations, which is, you know, your corporates or non-for-profits, and then after school. So I was just curious, like, what do you think the touch points are? How do you think this is going to evolve? Are there any other people there that I've missed that they learn from? Like, obviously there's AI in the mix. Like, what do you think the big picture ecosystem buckets are?
Tom, I kind of stacked the deck, by the way. I told Amber that in our previous conversation that you had a lot more experience with younger ones. So yeah, the ball's in your court. We're both interested in how you see the future of some of these things, for at least in like, because you touched on three things that Tom already does. Like it's a YMCA type kind of thing. It's like a club that he's working, but it's a sport, you know, and it's a school, and Tom's also taught, you know, other stuff. So.
Yeah, leadership. However, you know, the self-taught bit, there's a lot of people in technology, in martial arts, in all types of fields, because like take technology. I'm self-taught. From the time I can remember, I knew how to wire a speaker system. You know, when I was 8, 9 years old, I was wiring things up. I just knew how it worked. So if I couldn't go to school, or I couldn't get somebody to send me to technical school, I had the interest and the desire to learn on my own. So I think a lot of kids do that, but at the same time, what I saw so I have a degree in physical education, but physical education follows the same routine that all educators do, and one of the caveats and takeaways that I got from it was what they called styles of teaching. For instance, there's a command style of teaching where the student said, you sit at this desk, fold your hands, don't say anything, and just listen. You don't have permission to get up. You can't move unless the teacher tells you that you can get up and leave. That works really well for military training. In fact, one of my martial art teachers, Dr. G, calls it the dump truck style of education, and it's always done, and it's done in a very rote way. You'll see military training; it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, everybody will make those moves at the same time, and that works really well for that type of education where you're just trying to get rote things down. But then there's this second style of teaching, which is a little more liberal, where you'll say, all right, you're in this room. You're free to move around the room. And here's a series of tasks that I'm going to give you. You can do these, you have X amount of time, 1 hour to do these tasks. And at the end, you're to submit a report. So that more flexible style of teaching, I think, requires someone that has motivation and I guess has a degree of cooperation. There's always that outlier that doesn't fulfill the task, doesn't do well, and probably is more suited to that command style. But for a large group of people, I think to really get more skills across, you take that second style and then you do what we call a slanty rope style. In physical education, that meant that those who could jump over the lower end of the rope would do that, and those who could jump over the higher end would do that. So this way you could have different skill levels operating at the same time in the same flexible manner, and suit more students at the same time. And then you would move to a fourth style where you would have groups. This is really where the I think a more democratic approach might be. You'll choose a team leader. In many ways, this kind of works at more sophisticated military levels and certainly more sophisticated corporate levels, where someone is going to be the manager. Maybe someone else is drummed up the actual task that they're to do, but the manager might have to create the tasks. They're going to assign them to individuals in that group. They're going to have to report, but again, they're given flexibility to do that. And that type of group can actually grow because from within the group, they can come up with different tasks and ways to do those tasks, or even maybe bring in different maybe venture away from the actual original point of that.
It
So
sounds
I've
like,
always
it sounds like you're allowing the student to be part of the creative of, and not just follow the lesson, but create the lesson.
Yeah, so exactly. So that group will evolve and develop beyond maybe what the original tasks were. It's just your think tank approach, really. And then ultimately you have what's called the student guided approach, where the student and the teacher, this is usually more around your PhD level, where the student and the teacher now decide, they work on a thesis, they work on where they're going to go, and the student and teacher then evolve along, which is certainly the highest level and the highest way to go. So other than the motivated student who has an inclination to just is knowledge thirsty, wants to know how something works, and sets off on their own way, the rest of it requires leadership to a large extent. Someone building the lesson plan, someone coordinating or fitting those lesson plans to the intelligence of that group that they're dealing with. And I think that the leadership is a real talent. And I mean, how many great coaches have we ever we've heard about? There aren't that many great coaches. They're in schools. Unfortunately, it's bureaucracy and people taking up space because they have seniority, and I've seen. In education, I've seen so many young people go into education full of vigor, going, we're going to make a change in the world. And within a few years become disillusioned because they run up against a wall of some fat bureaucratic administrator who just shuts them down. Because we don't want to hear your ideas. We don't want to see that growth. We don't care. And the smart ones actually find a way to maneuver maybe to a charter school or to find the right school system, the right thing for them. And that's probably just part of our innate intelligence as it is. So You know, if
And
anything,
those options are becoming more and more available, because it used to be the kid would have to find another school, and now the kids say, screw it, I'll just look it up on Google. You know, if you don't know the answer, or whatever, I'll create my own. But before you joined in, Tom, I was telling Amber, because Amber shared this page, and I said, she's from Australia, and in the United States, where we're like number 48 in education around the world, our teachers union is horrible. I mean, you can't. They're just so. What you mentioned, so bureaucratically gummed up. I don't know if there's a way to patch it. I don't want to be the guy that go get rid of it, but I kind of, if you ask me, I go get rid of it. I don't know. It's pretty.
not even bigger problems. You know, bigger problems are just social.
Well, yeah, she was talking about the school shootings, just forcing kids in the inner city to all go to the same place, regardless of your background, regardless of your lifestyle, regardless of any.
You got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. But the fact that there are those opportunities to filter through to a level that's more effective for you. You know, those opportunities are there. You know,
I like them there, but what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Now, my mind's going to like the Little Rascals, but do you remember the truant officers were real? They would come for you. And I'm from inner city. Tom's also from inner city Philadelphia. And if you played hooky, for a couple, in seventh grade, I was a bad kid. I'd rather be at work, and I don't know. Do we need to force kids to physically show up anymore? Is that something we really need to spend money on? Maybe that's one big answer to say school shootings, and yet still keep people with the opportunities, because with their phone and soon with their eyeglass, they're going to have the ability to do it. I don't know. I mean, an educated society is a better society. They're going to solve problems in smarter ways, so we want the kids to be as smart as possible. But I don't know that I want to force them to all get up at the same time and go to the same place.
You got to start somewhere.
I don't mind making it available. I'm talking about forcing them. I'm talking about I don't know that we need to send truant officers to the kid that's marginalized and says, but when I go there, they beat me up, or for whatever reason, if the kid says, I can learn here. Check my scores.
So, right there, that's a social problem. I mean, the kid doesn't want to go to school because he's afraid he's going to get hurt. Or she's going to get hurt,
just
or
teased,
bullied,
just verbally abused, just emotionally abused.
You think about it. I mean, that's one of the I think growing up parts about school. Just learning how to adapt.
Yeah,
I mean, the reality is that happens in childhood. That's just natural. I think that's the byproduct of groups finding them. Well, sorry, what were you going to say?
The sandbox dichotomy, that sandbox dilemma, more or less. When a kid, before a kid goes to school, they're the center, they're the center of the universe. Everything around them they own, it's theirs. Then all of a sudden they're put into an environment where there's another kid in the sandbox, and now they fight over the toys, the bucket and shovel. And so the kid comes home without their bucket and shovel, and their parent, one of the parents goes, well, take that back, hit that kid, and now, violence ensues in this situation, and kids aren't really taught the skills in how to deal with that. What am I looking for?
There's a point in saying, a kid, you got to be able to stand up for yourself and learn to, assert yourself. But that kid got shot with 17 other of his classmates. And it's your fault. Should have learned. I hope the rest of you kids picked up on that. That's not fair to ask people. That's just not fair to ask people. And so that's why I say you can't force them. If they want to and they can and do this, and these things seem to work. But I keep going up into competition and, what's the difference between friendly and unfriendly competition? And to me, it just boils down to, are you looking to it doesn't matter who wins or lose, it's how you play the game. Then that's friendly competition, and it will educate everybody. And you keep getting smarter and smarter, and everybody gets smarter with every game. Or it's win at all costs. That's unfriendly competition. That's not helping, and we don't need to do that anymore.
Then you got this other aspect of being awake and aware. And I don't think that kids mature at different levels. I mean, I don't think I actually became really spiritually aware until I was 20.
So you were one?
And I think that, I don't think, it's almost like there are degrees and levels of awakeness.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm sure we are.
I think, kids are in school and, most of them are they're in a trance. They haven't really even awoke to their purpose in life,
Well,
so
we're here for. We're here to help them. We're here to help them figure it out.
They are taking just up time and space, and I don't know if a child can actually make any direction for themselves. I mean, not everyone. I mean, some kids are like, very much awake.
I'm not saying to go without direction. No. I totally agree that children need direction. In fact, what you remind me, you were telling a story about kids, not being. I had my nephew, and Tom, my older nephew Lawrence, over my house, and I asked him. He was like 14 at the time, to help me with something, and I was fixing up my basement, and I realized he had never used, and I forget what tool. I don't want to say a hammer. It might have been a hammer. And I was like, oh my gosh. And when I was a kid, I remember my dad had a bunch of tools, and he showed me how to use them, and I started thinking about the difference between, mammals need to be taught. You can't just rip a baby elephant away from its mom. You got to let him go there for like 14 years before he's learned the tricks, And so when we drop kids into this new technical environment, and their parents had never been, I never drove a car before. I don't know how to teach you how to drive. It's really hard for them. So whenever possible, we have to give them direction. That's our goal. The direction can't be follow me because I'm right. It could be, see what I'm doing. This is how it works for me. Now let's see if you can build in a new way. But if you get questioned about it, Dad always did it this way. He always looked at the North Star first to make sure that he was aligned properly. I'm going to do that. I'm going to look at the North Star first, And so whatever it is, I always got to make sure your drivers are up to date. That's the first thing I do,
I love what you touch on there, which is effectively leading by example. I really like that, because kids mimic their parents, they model their parents. And, I know one person, not like there's points in childhood where that happens. And I know one person who had a horrific childhood, and they could have gone one of two ways, and they're the most giving, kindest, purest person I know. But I love that concept of leading, the accountability of leading by example as an adult or an educator. And I like what you said, Larry, too, about direction. You don't tell a kid what they're going to be. I've had shit rammed down my throat, excuse the language. So I know how that feels like. And it's like, you might love something, but there's like this resentment when you're doing it. And you don't want that emotion cultivated in a kid. I think it's like steering them, maybe, is a way to frame it, or more like giving the scope to explore different things and learn about different things. Because we talked about that with Naveen and his daughter, who was like, I don't want anything to do with tech. And then Naveen sent her to the SU, and Peter mentored her, and now she's got, I think, a tech company.
Yeah.
So it's like this 360 exposure to things, so they can be cultured and learn about different things in the world, whether it's like language or sport or music, or just so they have an open mind. I think
I like to say, so, and I want to preface this properly, because as a parent, a modern parent, I like to say I teach my kids, but a lot of times I'm just talking, and then eventually my daughter goes, "I'm sorry, what?" So I don't know if she's even listening. But I try to teach just recently about how we, we've got our imagination and our memory. It's always that balance to stay current. You got to balance that. And I said, when you're imagining things, you have to be able to be free, and it's pointless to try to control someone's imagination. And we just got a new cat, so I started teaching her. I said, for example, do not imagine the new cat. Do not imagine that cat. Do not imagine it. And you can't stop but imagine. But when it comes to memory, we need to be on the same page. So it's like, no, I gave you $5 and you gave me this broken thing. You were in here. Memories have to be the same, or linked up somehow through a stand. But imagination has to be unique. Whatever you imagine has to be yours, come together on memories,
Well, I think with the memories bit, you're talking about accountability to each other a bit there as well, right?
Yeah,
which is nice.
That's what it's all about, the past, right? The accountant, so he can go over the past and record. That makes sense.
And I like this cultivating the leading by example, but not spoon feeding them. And this sort of threads back to Tom, what you were talking about is, I love the second one. Well, actually, quite honestly, like the second one and the third one sounded quite similar. Whereas, yeah, so
rather you have a variable amount of like different skill levels. So that's a way to accommodate different skills.
For instance, in karate school, you have some kids who are working on their yellow belt, some kids are working on their red or whatever.
Yeah, and I love that, throwing the kids in the mix with the more experienced ones, because they can learn from the older demographic, but the older demographic can learn from the younger demographic who might have a strength and a skill set that they don't. And it actually reminded me of when I used to do boot camp. We had like Alpha, Beta, Charlie, and Alpha used to run the loop on the hill to go until Charlie finished. That's what you reminded me of.
Right.
But I liked how you were talking about it's not spoon feeding them. So you said, like, give them the framework and like go off and do the task and let them actually figure it out for themselves. I like that sort of organic way of learning, and the kids teaching each other and problem solving together as a team. I really like that.
But still having that leader to go back to for any issues.
Yeah. I mean, experiments in what they call laissez-faire approach to anything. If there's no leadership or no plan, or at least no agenda,
framework,
less apt to actually achieve your goal. So definitely there needs to be some outline that everyone can kind of follow along with.
Yeah.
What do you think of?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Can I ask you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm just going to go. I'm saying, suppose there's a framework and you say, all right, students must meet these, whatever, 8 skill levels. And that's our framework, blah, 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 whatever, math, reading. And some people are like, well, I'm not really doing that for whatever reason. My brain doesn't work that way, but I'm really good at these. And I created 2 other levels. Did you notice that? And I think that we have to have flexibility in that. So whenever you go, hey, our framework needs to update, so whenever there's an outlier, you go, maybe it's not the kid's fault, it's our framework.
Yeah, without a doubt. So that's where your feedback comes in. You can see that maybe if you're not paying attention, at least maybe their test scores at the end of the semester tells you that maybe your approach wasn't quite right. But usually I mean, as a teacher, you can see, you know, like for instance, if I were running a workout class and I said, all right, you're going to do 20 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, 20 pull-ups, okay, you got this amount of time, and then get started, and I go over there and I see everybody sitting on the floor, I get to see that they're not compatible with that approach. Now they're going to need a group leader going, all right, sit-ups first, ready, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. And sometimes it works better if you're doing the sit-up with them. So you know, teaching through leadership, do by example is always a better way to do it than to just say, do these, you know, here's the task, do it. I think I guess the better coaches, the better trainers have done it already. And they know how to, you know, orchestrate and bring the best out of these students. But Larry did say something that was kind of interesting when he talked about tools, you know, and when we think of even ancient cultures, we think of their sophistication in terms of the ability to manipulate tools. And even if those tools were just a hammer and a chisel, okay, that tool is really no much more different than a keyboard and a computer. It's a tool, and that we need those before us to kind of show us how to use those tools. You know, the case is that who's better suited for which tools? You know, some kids are better suited for maybe working in ventilation and air conditioning, you know, or working in a technical trade like that, and others are more suited for maybe working in robotics, and others are better suited for software writing. You know, when there's that bit of aptitude evaluation.
This is where I go back to my belief that Google is doing such a good job at that. Their ability to recommend, like YouTube, you're going to want to watch this video, Larry. We know you. And I'm telling you, you got to see Sadhguru, which is literally what happened. You know, that's how I discovered Sadhguru. YouTube goes, dude, trust me, click this.
Well, isn't it weird? So the algorithm is actually fostering the leadership through.
It's what? Sorry?
It's creating the leadership for us because it's presenting what it thinks our likes,
right,
you know,
by predicting your habits and based on it. Yeah.
Does it know that that's the next thing I need to learn? You know, just one thing I got to say was over the weekend I was watching a football game, and somebody at the bar says, so do you think these kids are getting more stupid, you know, with these phones and, you know, and Google and all this stuff, you know? And I went, absolutely not. You know, they're so much smarter, you know, because of the tools and knowledge that they have at their fingertips. Yeah. But yet there seems to be a bit of thinking in that way that it is. But I mean, even, you know, I'm going to roll back to even the infancy of video games. And that people thought, well, kids are wasting their time, but actually, it's our DNA is has brought this about to prepare us for space migration.
Yeah.
We're learning. We have learned, and the kids are learning how to navigate in a world that is so foreign from the generations before us.
I still believe
that they needed this kick up, this boost up in knowledge in order to be able to navigate.
It's a genetic imperative. That's exactly how I see it, Tom. It's like life extension to me. It's not like some billionaire's goal to just selfishly stay alive. It's like, no, when you leave and you get on a ship that's going to take you even to whatever regular round trips to Jupiter. I'm not even talking Saturn yet. It makes sense to live hundreds of years longer, just to fully mine and explore our little solar system. It's going to take 10,000 years.
So it makes me actually ask a question and answer the question. Is there a predestiny? And I know it's loose, but I think that if it wasn't for Edison and Tesla to discover electricity, the next person would have.
Right.
Just
what are their names on other planets?
Holding of the human mind, the
evolution.
Yeah, it's just natural. It's like giving a name to the first fish that smelled air and thinking that all amphibians would pay homage. And let's not remember Flipper. That guy came up and he smelled air, and we thank him, because without him, we'd all still be living in the water.
So, going back to education, probably education itself needs a revamp and a redesign. Certainly, all these methods, such as self-taught, homeschooling. You think about it, homeschooling, Larry learning how to use tools. I remember you said something about your uncle going, you don't have tools. What kind of man are you?
Oh, about the pry bar. Yeah. Amber, my uncle is a tool man, and he comes over. He's helping me do some work. I'm refinishing a basement, and he goes, Larry, I need a pry bar, and he's up on a ladder. And I said, I don't have one. He goes, Larry, stop. I need a pry bar. You see, I'm busy. I said, I don't have one. And he says, Larry, stop it now. Men have pry bars. And my sister has assured me that you're a man. Are you calling my sister a liar?
I don't even know what a pry bar is. What is it?
It's a metal bar, a lever to help.
Okay.
Something you can.
I can't even put a bloody IKEA chair together.
Something you can get in, wedge it into something. Really, what Archimedes said: "Give me a lever long enough, and I'll move the world." Very important principle, leverage. In how to utilize that, not only in the physical world, but in the emotional, mental, and spiritual world.
Well, we are coming to the end. I don't want to do it without covering the rest of these slides. Amber, could you walk us through the rest of these?
I just want to, there's a loop there, which I love how you tied in space migration and like this genetic evolution and what we're like this destiny or evolution.
Okay, yeah, I kind of glanced over, but the way when we met, Amber, Tom and I met. Tom gave me the book that really linked me to Peter in many ways, is Exopsychology by Timothy Leary. And in Timothy Leary's 1976 book, he postulated that we are going through a pre-programmed evolutionary shift. We're mutating into a spacefaring creature. It probably happens like this on planets of this type throughout the universe when they get to this phase of evolution. And that he felt that it's not like a choice to become spacefaring. It's like asking a caterpillar to choose, do you want to become a butterfly? They're going to be a butterfly. It's in their DNA. So it's predestined. I don't think the butterfly is predestined to flap his wings in any one direction, but a caterpillar is predestined to become a butterfly.
But the people have to make it happen, which ties back to
cocoons will be made. Cocoons will find a way to make them,
which I love how it ties back to your first point, Tom, about, and I like this is the first bucket I put up there. And I think the root of education, I think about the times that I've been thrown in the deep end and I've had to learn myself. Like, how much more do you retain the information or commit to executing on that information when you are self-taught? How much more passionate do you become about it? It's like so initiative driven. I love, Tom, that you telling me that you learned to do, what were you doing? Soldering or like putting your tech together when you're 8 or 9 years old. It's like
he was running
I
speakers.
would wired speaker like
sorry, yeah.
Wait, I'm going to
sound-
challenge you. I bet you it wasn't just speakers, because I was that kid too. Tell me you weren't playing with little light bulbs, flashlights. You taking flashlights apart and doing that, weren't you?
whatever. I mean,
Flashlights and speakers were like
up
the
to
two things you
taking
could find.
washing, and then you graduate to automobiles. You go, well, how does this work? So you take that apart. And then someday you actually kind of get it back together.
I was just thinking as we wrap it up about, finding your passion. That's going to be self. You have to first start here, and you start Googling around, and Google starts noticing, dude, you need a little more help. You know who knows more about Tai Chi? You should check out Tom Updegrove. In fact, I noticed from your search history, Larry, you're in Philly. So I think we're going to have our AI assistants. I think we have to start self. What is it that you find the future? What do you imagine? That's got to be you. And then let the Google AIs and stuff. I have a lot of faith that they're really there to help us. I've had too much good experience to think otherwise for now. And then you find a coach, though. As Tom says, you need leadership. You can't just let people meander because they're not going to do anything. Humans have it just like geese. There's a goose that starts yelling around. He's like, oh, everybody, come on, we're leaving. We got to go to the next place. It's not always the same goose, even in the same flight. He might get tired in some other goose, but there's always
even for our own evolution and self-development, we need to sit back and organize where we're at and where do we want to get to. How are we going to get there? Who can help me do that? And I'll give you a quick example of the evaluation. So in the military, I was in a company with 300 guys. At the end of 8 weeks, they do a lot of evaluation, a lot of testing and so on. 299 of them went into the advanced infantry and off to Vietnam. And I got sent to signal school to learn how to learn microwave radios. Now, why did that happen? Because they gave me a battery test, and just my aptitude.
Your aptitude showed there, and that was using the primitive metrics they used then. Imagine what Google could do with the metrics it's gathered. Yeah.
Sure. Larry, do you want me to touch on any of the other things?
Please. So should I move to the next slide here?
Yeah. So when I was, how I was talking about like there's existing ecosystems. So there's so much of like, we're going to disrupt this industry. I hate the word disruption, by the way. It's actually like
getting a little overused.
Yeah, and it's like it's sexy to use it, but disruption actually it's not a positive word if you look up the definition. But anyway, I'll let people use what words they want to use.
It's change.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm sure you could describe. I think it's a Silicon Valley sexy jazz word thing, buzzword thing. Anyway, that's just my opinion. So I was looking at the ecosystem and so yeah, you can kind of like one player can come in and do all this stuff, but the reality is there's all these partners already doing things. So it's like, how can you align them all together? And what I found interesting was it's like it's clear the school system has to evolve, and will that go away completely? Well, I hope it doesn't, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
And I know you're not saying that, Larry. I know you're saying, should we make them go? Well, it's not that you don't want them to go. It's just a question of should it be like this structured? You must show up at this time and walk through the security gates and have your bag checked.
Too. And we go back to the earlier educational systems prior to the industrial age. you probably
Mm.
already knew the other kids in class. You know what I mean? There's a good chance that their parents hung with your parents and stuff. They were from the same race, religion, or whatever. And so there was a natural, family feeling there. You felt part of a family unit. Today, it's so impersonal. There, it's like the kids from all different things just shoved into this factory, and so that's what I don't. But I would love to go back to that. I would love to see. I'm looking at the Legos. I was a big Lego fan.
Yeah.
Picturing the old style school teacher with the kids. Sometimes, I would watch the Little Rascals, and there'd be like a first grader with a 12th grader in the same classroom. I don't know.
Yeah, and I love that
Yeah,
because
me
the
too.
dynamic I learned from like older kids, and I hung out with everyone, to be honest. I learned from like the third grade kids and the senior kids, and I was just yeah, so tying back to this like hybrid 360 solution, like what does that look like from an education point of view? Like bricks and mortar on the ground, AI, like what's the right balance? And I think it's could be quite individualized by child. And then I was looking at, okay, tying back to, okay, the government, it has to evolve. That's so apparent. But what was really positive was the partners that I saw that they were working with. So on this list, they had partners that they were working with.
And
Now, Lego
this
is
is
one of the
right?
biggest.
Yeah, and I saw that the
Yeah.
Lego group. Yeah.
And I was pretty disappointed, honestly, to see a lack of the biggest brand names in the world. Like, really, when you look at that list, I think it's also nice to have the startups in there and the innovators in there. I think that's great. But,
Locally, I was looking at our local contributors, Tom, and
Yeah.
I was wondering why not the Franklin Institute or something, but I don't know. I don't want to judge. But that was my favorite educational facility, Amber, in Philadelphia is the Benjamin Franklin Institute, where they have all kinds of neat gadgets and stuff and displays, and you could walk through a giant heart and stuff and learn about electronics. Yeah. So, but
That's
yeah,
lovely. So
I
there's the local, you're touching on the local grassroots point of view, which is really beautiful. But these big guys, they bring cash, they bring assets, they bring tools. So I was really excited to see Lego in there because that's one of the biggest brands in the world. I don't know how many billions of bricks have been produced, and I know they're going eco-friendly because obviously they're made of plastic. But, that learning process of actually building something with the bricks is so empowering for kids. So,
I was a Lego maniac. I mean, they were what they were, but I was absolutely crazy for any building toys. And I had those, and I had something else called Toggles, and I also had Tinker Toys. Tom, remember Tinker Toys?
I do remember Tinker Toys, yeah.
So it starts in Duplo, and they've now got Lego for girls as well, which I think they bought out probably 13 years ago, maybe. So I was excited to say, I'm like, that's progressive, right? You don't just partner with Lego for no, like, that. I was really happy to see that. And then if you scroll down a bit, so it looks like there's grassroots. So I'm doing the buckets again. Grassroots associations, new and upcoming startups, which actually, when you go and look at like data science for everyone, it's more education for kids. There's like courses in there. And then you've got these like bigger brands. So the Albert Einstein, what was it?
Distinguished Educator Fellowship Program.
Yeah, this was
amazing. It's from NASA. It's part of NASA.
Well,
but are they related to the local Albert Einstein Hospital?
No, it looks like it's related.
Oh, there's just some some logos in there, but the kids can go and do like experience with the DoD and the Department of Energy and Homeland Security. I mean, like that's great. And then you've got Intel in there. Have I got that twice? You've got Dell as well, and then you've got the Smithsonian Science Education, which I think that's the biggest museum in the world. So
yeah.
I was pumped when I saw these names in there, and then when I did the digging, the upstart, or what do you call it, startups, where they're offering like I guess a deeper solution beyond the standard curriculum, so kids and teachers can go and explore more. I was just curious. So they're like big names that were in there. Are there any others that you think would make sense to sort of like jump on the bandwagon of how do you redefine or evolve education?
I would love to see game makers in there. I don't know enough about who they are, but since I'm looking, I really believe in the gamification of learning. I love the idea that Peter points out that in a game, kids start out with 0 and they accumulate score, not like the traditional school system where you start off with 100 and every mistake you make goes against you, you know. But at the same time, not if the game is going to be Grand Theft Auto, you know. So I would like to see some responsible, like Electronic Arts or something, do something like that. Maybe even Facebook.
Yeah. How about entertainment industry?
Yeah, exactly. Netflix. Why not Netflix? Why not?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because the gaming industry is like rapidly evolving and changing. And I don't think there's, you know, who's a big player in the gaming industry?
Electronic Arts has been there for
so rapidly changing. You know?
Well,
What's interesting is thinking about education, much like law, much like medicine, much like ethics, they all trail behind technology. And technology so rapidly grows and develops, and they're all just kind of trailing along. These institutions can't evolve fast enough to deal with the changes in technology.
You know, I say that the same thing with fire. Here we are 30,000 years, but I think we rushed because people are still getting killed in fires every day. And I think we should hold off on fire. I think we should back off. We've gone too far. Let's go back and wait till we make it safe.
Yeah, I just, you know, I think it's, you know, it's just a fact of life, of nature, that institutions are slow to change, but they do change.
Yeah,
well,
but
how do you stick the rocket?
How do you what? How do you what?
I need to figure out, like, I don't know, how do you get them juiced? I mean, it's so easy to say they're slow to change, you know.
You got to find connectors to spread the information. You need to network with the right people that can institute change.
Yeah.
But it's always happening. The question is, are you taking an active part in it? You know,
Yes.
And I heard a great Sadhguru thing today. It was pretty cool about, and it's one of my favorite debates with my younger one, by the way, about the right of billionaires to be billionaires when there's so many starving people or whatever. And a woman asked him a question. It was actually a student, Amber, asked him that he was presenting at school. And he said, you know, basically it comes down to, you listen to people complain. She's worried that some people complain they don't have enough money. He said, but once you understand the complaint, it becomes important to then actively work toward it, you know, and just do it. And he said, and you're worried that some people are greedy. He said, but I think that that's a good thing. He said, it's just that who you're greedy for could expand. So you could look at the situation and say, hey, some people are poor, some people are rich. This situation sucks, but I could probably make money knowing how to leverage this unfair system. Or you could go, I know how I could make it a little bit better. And then you just do that, you know, and you just say, and you take an active, instead of just observing, be part of the creation, be part of the creation of the next thing, whatever that change is. We're never arrived to the end, you know, when you arrive somewhere in life, you're dead, right? So it's always, you're still in the journey. Are you being creative in your journey? Are you creating solutions, or are you just describing the problem? You know, and I understand you have to describe a problem before you can fix a solution, but you can't just make your living describing problems, you know.
They're great questions, though. And I think it ties back to what Tom said in the beginning, which was this initiative-based education for kids, like cultivating that in kids early on is having initiative and being self-taught.
Well, but you also pointed out that sometimes kids don't know, and you can't just leave them on their own. They still need leadership. People have to step up and be leaders, right? Did I catch that right, Tom?
Yeah. You know, probably the more opportunities that you can provide, the better selection that better choices children will make. You know, if you gave them an opportunity early on to explore medicine, explore law, explore arts, explore technology, I mean, what would they take a fancy to? You know, and then foster that. You know.
Yeah, Peter always says his job is to just expose his children to other ways. You can't force them, but if you could lead them through the museum to go, and this is how some things are done, this is how some things are done. So, you know, I can expose you to this is something called blockchain, whatever this is, you know, medical stuff, and then see what you like. Maybe you'll like something else. It's not even here, but the thing I can do is expose you to it. And that's leadership in itself, as opposed to, hey, go on your own, kid. I figured it out for me, which my daughter loves to point out. She hates, it's like people who say, I had it hard when I was a kid and I came out okay. Didn't come out okay. She's like, no, you didn't come out okay if that's your attitude. Well, I think we've gone our hour and just slightly over there. So I know I got to get back to making dinner. So thank you guys so much for our 2023 kickoff, securing abundance, optimistic ways to just make the future a better place.
Yeah. Hey, this was cool. I really enjoyed this.
Oh, thank you.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Quite
well, we're just gonna have to do this again.
Yeah. Well,